let's get started. So we're going to be looking into how to visualize sound, specifically through After Effects and also in Maya, okay? There's basically one principal workflow that you go through when you visualize sound, and that's basically taking sound, converting it into a value of 0 to 1, and then using that information and plug it into something that can be read in a visual medium, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to do that through basically creating kind of a particle system. So I'm going to explore that in After Effects so you can see kind of what the workflow is in After Effects, and we're also going to create something in Maya as well so you can see how it plays between a 2D software and a 3D software, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is import your sound clip, right? I've already done that, so I'm just going to create a new composition. New composition, we're going to call this sound viz. Looks good, hit OK. And then drag that sound clip into your comp. Okay, if you double click on L on your keyboard, it's going to open up your waveform just so you can kind of see what's going on audibly, right? You can visually see what the audio levels are. So, and I just got a very, kind of a techno hip hop clip playing. So this is one we're going to be using for this tutorial. So now that you have your sound clip in, we're basically going to convert this into some kind of information that the After Effects can read, okay? I'm going to right click on this. I want to name it, right click. Here we go. Go to Keyframe Assistant, convert to audio keyframes. What that's going to do, it's going to create a null. And in that null, it's basically going to have a bunch of baked information. So if you open up the Effects tab, you're going to see that it's baked the left, right, and both channels from the sound, okay? So if I open up this one right here, click on this slider, and I go into the graph editor, you can see that there's baked keys on every frame. And so this is really good for us because now we can basically convert this information into visual data, all right? So what we're going to do here is I'm going to minimize this, go back into our timeline, go to Layer, New, and we're going to create solid, okay? And I'm going to call this particles. Hit OK. Cool. And I already got it open here. We're going to use particle world, okay? And I'm going to drag it onto particles. And all right. So I'm going to shut this off for a second. So if we just play this, we get a straight, the basic particle system that After Effects has preset for the particle world, okay? But if we go down here, I'm going to open up the effects in both particles, and I'm going to open up the effects in this right here too. So we're going to be focusing on this value right here. Don't worry too much about left or right. I'm going to be using the both channels keyframes. So if you go down here to the birth rate, right, because the birth rate is what determines how many particles there are. If that's what we want to change, what you can do here is grab this little kind of spiral shape, okay? This is the parent tool. So parent link, right? So grab that, click and drag, and then kind of scroll down till you get to the slider thing, okay? So then let go. You're going to notice a change in here, and basically now After Effects is going to read the audio information, right? These audio keyframes as the values of which guide birth rate. So if we play this now, and I'm going to close this out. So if we play this now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see, it's a little hard to see right now, but now it's actually using the sound information to affect the birth rate of the particles, okay? But as you can see here, it's way too much, right? It's way, way too much. So we got to adjust this. So the thing that you can do when you're working with this is you can open up the attribute that you've parented, right? So we're going to click this drop down, and you can see that After Effects basically already created an expression for you. When you parent that information, it does this little expression. So you don't want to touch with that too much, but you can add on to it, okay? So in our case, because we have way too many particles being created, because basically the information that the sound keyframes are way too high for the birth rate. So we have to offset that information, okay? So I'm going to put in something like -20. Basically, it's just going to offset the value of the birth rate by 20, okay? So it just makes it very easy to adjust up and down. So then just click off, and then if we play it again, zoom out a little bit. So now we got something going on here, right? This is basically how it works. You can do this same thing for any effect in After Effects. Any effect that has an attribute with a value attached to it, you can affect this. And so, as you can see, it's very, very powerful. There's a lot of implications. But what happens when you want to do something like this in 3D, right? How can you take something like this, and even though this is in 3D, right? Even though we have some particles in 3D here, it's limited information, right? This After Effects is not designed to do 3D. How can we create some particles that are meant to be in a 3D space? So next we're going to look at how to create a particle system that's visualized from sound in Maya. So here we are in Maya, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a sphere. All right, so this is going to be the basis of our particle system. We're going to go in here to the channel box, open this up, and just set this to something like 12. Okay, we don't really need 20. We probably don't need 12 either. I'm just going to set it to like 8 apiece. Okay, this is going to be a pretty small object, so all we would really need to do is just go to modeling tab, mesh display, soften edge. Okay, so yeah, we're not going to be seeing this very close up. Okay, this is going to be our particle essentially, so we don't need this to be very high resolution. Okay, so I'm going to go here. I'm just going to name this. We're going to do particle mesh. All right. Okay. So we got that. Make sure you delete history just to be secure, just to have good practice, right? So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to make sure the timeline is at 1, and then I'm going to go File, Import, go up to your assets, make sure you have just a sound file. Go to Sounds, we're going to import this right here, okay? So this is the same clip from before. One thing to be aware of when you're importing sound is it needs to be in a wave. If you're working on Windows anyway, I know that your sound files need to be wave format, otherwise Maya won't take any other kind, so just be aware of that. So this doesn't serve any other purpose other than to hear what's going on. Okay, so we're going to be importing our sound again, but it's so that it's for information. It's not for actually hearing anything. So what we did here is we just imported the sound so that we can listen to it at the same time that we're seeing it happen on screen. So now we're ready to begin kind of exploring the mesh networks. Okay, and we're going to be exploring specifically the audio node. Which is really, really powerful. So I'm going to go to mesh, we're going to create mesh network, and you know what, before I do that, I'm just going to scale this down a little bit. So we actually really don't need particle to be that big. That'll be good. So we're going to delete history, freeze transforms. Okay, so we're going to click that, mesh, create mesh network option box, sound phase. Okay, make sure that's instancer. Distribution doesn't matter at this point. We're going to change it later. And apply and close. Cool, so we've created our mesh network, and we're going to go to here. You know what actually I'm going to do first? I'm going to just type in mesh, because I like having it in the outliner. And then what you can also do is just pull up the mesh editor, minimize it. It's just nice, it's easy to pull up. So we're going to be attaching the audio node. So go ahead and add that. And the first thing it's going to say is no audio file. So you would just have to go in and plug in an audio file. So grab it, open it up, make sure your project is set and everything. And as you can see here, if we play this, we already have some sound being visualized, right? It's already kind of doing some work for us. So we're going to be changing this up a lot. But let me kind of show you where the real power of this effect is. So you can change these settings. Feel free to explore them. They're pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go over them in this video. But let me show you the one attribute that is very, very, very powerful. Go to under Advanced Options. You see this attribute right here. It's the volume attribute. Essentially, this value right here is exactly what we just did in After Effects. So all of those keyframes that you saw in the After Effects, right, in that null under the Effects tab, this is the same thing, okay? So if I change this around, you can see that this volume is changing, right? So the benefit of this right here is that we can plug this value into other attributes, and we can drive other attributes with this value, okay? That's the real power here, okay? So this is what we're going to be focusing on. So What the next step we're going to do is we're basically going to create a mesh for our particle cloud. Okay, so I'm going to hide this for a second. I'm going to hide the instancer. We're going to go and we're going to create a new mesh. We're going to create a sphere. Okay, I'm going to scale this up to about here, and it's 20 by 20 in resolution, which is actually okay. We're going to want pretty dense mesh, or average dense. Okay, so I'm going to actually name this. We're going to do particle parent. Cool. So the first step is you're going to go back into, you can unhide your mesh network, go back in here, and then click on this, open up your distribute node. Okay, we're going to set this distribution to mesh, scatter, that's good. And then we want to input our mesh here, right? So I'm going to grab particle parent, just drop it right there, and now our particles are being scattered around this mesh. So we're going to increase the number of points from 10 to something like 350. Okay, we want quite a bit of points going on here. All right, so we are basically set up, and if we play this back, you'll see that it doesn't look very good. We don't have exactly what we're looking for. We have some information that's being, right? We have some sound that's being visualized, right? But it doesn't look very good. So we got to make some tweaks to this. What we're going to do is we basically want to create some animation that affects the entire mesh network. Okay, we want to create some kind of wiggle, right? That is affected by the sound. So the way we're going to do that is by using deformers. So I'm going to hide the mesh network, and I'm going to take this, the particle parent, I'm going to duplicate it. Okay, I'm going to pull it over. We're going to go over here. We're going to click on the duplicate, click on the original, go up to deform, blend shape. Okay. I'm going to go in here, and we're going to go into surfaces and open up the sculpt geometry tool. What we're doing here is we're going to affect the geometry of our particle parent, and we're going to, and we created a blend shape. Basically, we're going to attach the volume attribute that we just explored in the audio node. We're going to attach that to the envelope, the weight of this blend shape. You'll see what I mean in a second. So just follow along here. So we're going to do, I'm going to do this one. Let's push in. Let's see. Pull out. Okay. So just go in here and just kind of, you can be pretty aggressive with this. We want to get some varied shape going on all around this topology. So just really, really mess around. You can push into, the goal is just not to have anything at the original, and no vertices should be in the original position. So you just want to displace all of them. It looks super ugly. It's supposed to look like that. We're not concerned with the look of it. We're concerned with the placement of each vertice. So just really, really, really go in here, get some variation. All right, cool. So that's pretty good. I'm gonna hit W to exit, sculpt geometry, exit out of tool. I'm going to click on this right here. I'm going to go into the vertices. I'm actually going to increase the size. Okay. So now let me show you. I'm going to turn off the grid. And let me kind of show you what we're going for here. So if we go under the channel box of our parent, of our particle parent, you'll see, selected here, blend shape. You'll see that we have really, really basic blend shape, right? But we're going to tweak this by basically animating this value. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to hide this. I'm going to open up the instancer again. And I'm going to go into the node editor. So we have our sound viz. Press 3 to expand that. Oh, actually, we want to get the nodes in here first. So click on your sound viz, go up to, the channel box, and just click on the audio, right? Just click on that, and then add it into node editor, and then also go to your particle parent, click on that blend shape, and add that blend shape too. So you can select these and get rid of them. We just want the blend shape. So we're going to expand this. We're going to expand the audio node. And now we are ready to start making some big changes to our particle system here. Before I go any further, I'm actually going to backtrack just a little bit, and this will make sense. But I'm going to show you something real quick. So if we open up the instancer again, if I go to our audio node, the thing about working with this value right here is it's very jittery. Because it's so accurate to what the actual sound is playing, right? Because there's so much variation in the actual sound clip being played, is that the values being exported are very jittery, right? They're not very smooth. If we would play this back, I'm going to hide this, and we were to play this back, you can see this going on here, right? A lot of jittering going on. So we're going to fix that, okay? I'm going to go in here to our node, our mesh network. I'm going to go into the options. We're going to create, not a delay, we're going to create spring, add a spring node. What the spring basically does is it smooths out your animation. Okay, so it makes it much smoother instead of being very jittery. You can see that here, right? So we have that value, and you're welcome to change these. I might just adjust these a little bit, mess around with those. Okay, so now back to the node editor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this, open up the weight of the particle parent. You're going to create, you see this out volume right here? We're going to take this, take that out volume, and put it right there. You notice some changes start to happen. Now if we play this, basically what's going on is the out volume of the audio node is translating into the envelope of the blend shape, okay? So as it goes from 0 to 1, it's adjusting the 0 to 1 envelope of the blend shape. So this is going to give us a unique shape and animation that's played during our particle animation. So we got that, and I'm going to go in here because this value is actually pretty low. We're going to adjust it, and I'm going to go in and we're going to create a multiply divide. Okay, so multiply divide, expand that. Oops. Input out volume into X, output into that. Over here, do something like 15. Just see what that looks like. Ah, yes, much better. We can probably correct that up too, right? I'm going to put that to something like 30. Just see. You'll probably get some cache warnings. Cool. So that's starting to look pretty cool. I'm actually going to set this to 120 because the beginning's kind of the same. So that's like 1000. So if we play this now, so we're almost finished creating kind of this little particle network, right? Trying to kind of visualize some sound to it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit more variation to this particle system, because right now, even though we have some cool movement going on, it's a little static, right? We want to add some individual movement between all of these particles. So we're going to open up our mesh editor. Press this plus sign. We're going to create a signal node. So a signal node basically creates noise and variation within your mesh network. So it takes the individual points and moves them around. It gives them kind of a pattern, some variation to go. So if we play this back, you can already see it's creating some really interesting animation. And at the same time, it's still playing to the music, right? It's still visualizing the music. So this just adds a nice kind of polish, a nice kind of variation and randomness. You're welcome to change all these options here. You're welcome to look into these. They're pretty intuitive, so I'm not going to go into them, but you can explore that. And the very last thing we're going to do is we're just going to add a trail to our particles. So I'm going to mesh editor, Press this plus sign. We're going to add trails. Okay. Set this to something like 10. Basically what this does, it just adds a little bit more polish, a little bit of follow through to the animation for each of these particles. So we play this through, you can see it's kind of has the little trails going on here. But that's basically it. And again, the power of Mash is that things stack, right? You can combine effects and put them together. There's way more possibilities than what I just went through in this video. I encourage you to explore them. But I would say that this is a very efficient workflow of creating, visualizing sound and creating, some kind of particle system. I would say the benefit over having an emitter and having an actual particle system is that you have much more control over what goes on in this, right? You can change the exact variation of your particles with the signal. You can go in and change, the deformer, right? Because we know exactly where these objects are being, kind of expanded to, right? Because we have a deformer, the blend shape that's being plugged in. So you have a lot more control. And I would also say your render times are going to be a lot quicker. When I rendered this out for this video, the one that you actually saw at the beginning, each frame was a 2-second render. So it's very quick, very efficient. And again, it's entirely procedural. So I would say have a lot of fun. Please, go in and explore it, change the options, try to stack some effects and get some really unique, visuals playing. And I certainly learned a lot myself. I think Mash is something that's definitely worth exploring. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.